You're watching a replay of Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres. For more videos just like this, hit that red subscribe button.
Good morning. You're listening to the legendary 1480 WSAR. I am Rich Cabaceres, and this is Brain Drain. That's right, we have another episode of Brain Drain on 1480 WSAR. You can watch us live anywhere in the world by going to WSAR.com and going to the Spindle City Autoglass Studio Cam. You can also watch us right on your Facebook page by typing in Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres, and that will take you to the J&J Jewelers Facebook Live Cam, where you can see my smiling face, where I'm looking at you right now, talking to you about the great show that we're going to have today. You can also go to the TuneIn Radio app, type in WSAR, and you will listen to us anywhere in the world, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 11 a.m., Eastern Standard Time. And guess what? Today we are going to talk about what I'm thankful for, because it is Thursday. And, you know, I figured let's play on the Thursday thing a little bit. Let's talk about what I'm thankful for. And I'm thankful for a couple of things. First, we had the generation conversation, the generation gap conversation yesterday. And I'm thankful for the fact that some of our young people are getting more involved in what's happening in their world. Now, I want to kind of introduce you to somebody who's become Facebook famous, and the name of the page is Our Third Life on YouTube. And let's hear what she thinks we need to do to make our world a better place.
Did you know that there are over 5 languages in this world?
5 languages.
We don't need all these languages, people. We don't need no British language or Canadian language or Hawaiian language or Alaskan language. We need just American, okay? Just American language. Nothing more, nothing less, just American. You want to know why? Because the letters are pretty. They're cute, pretty letters.
The letters are pretty.
You can't get letters, prettier in the world, okay? Also, with the, what is it, sans serif, and, there's just a lot of fonts. You can't get that with no Canadian language with the little ching-chang-chongs. No,
the Canadian language.
So, as the president of the world, kid president of the world, and the queen of everything,
the queen of everything,
I am now going to officially cut the dookie with the other languages. We don't need them.
At least she's FCC correct.
You want to know what I found out? Most of England speaks Americanish, but they just have an accent.
An accent, eh?
Americans, we don't have any accents because we are the future of the world. But I'm just saying, they speak it. They speak it.
Preach.
So should you. So if you can't understand this video, you need to learn Americanish.
You need to learn Americanish.
You need to learn Americanish. Bye.
Words of wisdom. You need to learn Americanish. Let's see what you think. What say you, caller?
Oh, good morning.
Morning. How you doing?
She's actually just playing at being dumb. I mean, that's just what she does. It's just thick. You know, that's her joke.
You know,
we have people in Congress that are actually that stupid.
Well,
and one of them is being Adam Schiff. Have you heard the tape of him talking to these Russian comedians, saying that they have naked pictures of Donald Trump?
Well, there is an accusation of Donald Trump, there being naked pictures of Donald Trump getting peed on.
Now, that was actually, see, you got that all mixed up.
Okay.
That one was supposedly he hired some prostitutes to pee on the bed where Barack Obama and Michelle Obama slept.
Oh, okay.
While in Russia.
Okay, that's okay then.
Not on him.
Okay.
But, yeah, this was a joke that these two Russian comedians were playing. And you have Adam Schiff follow up with emails. You have him asking for spellings of names of made-up people, supposedly in the Russian government.
Was one of them
Right.
IP Freely?
No.
We're having a little
Come
bit of fun today.
And then you have this guy coming out with his memo trying to debunk what the Republicans are doing. They wrote 4 pages. He wrote 10 to try to explain it away. Amazing that this man actually holds elected office in this country.
Well, I think it's amazing that a lot of people hold elected office in this country in various offices. We can look at what some people have done to attain elected office and what people are doing while they currently hold elected office.
Right, like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, who was trying to attain elective office through, pushing some false dossier and getting the FBI to be weaponized against their political opponents. Amazing.
How about state legislators who don't think that they're able to be criticized at all? It happens all across the board. I've never heard of an elected official ever who didn't think that they were supposed to be criticized, but that's our job, right? We're supposed to criticize positive.
That's what they're there for, quite honestly.
Right. With criticism, and it should be positive criticism, but when they do something wrong, we should be able to criticize those wrong actions. And apparently, state elected officials don't feel that way.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to.
I know.
That one, but
I know. We did a show a couple of days ago talking about state elected officials, and a couple of them reached out to me.
oh well. If they can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
You got it.
But the thing is, when you use the apparatus of government to actually attack your political opponents, that is beyond the pale. Honestly, what Adam Schiff did in trying to pursue that false information and whatnot, it amounts to sedition, and he should be charged with such.
Well, and thank you so much, because we do have to go to a commercial break. I want to thank you so much for your call and your points. I think you make some fair points, and I think people are going to be able to add to it. But thank you so much. Have a great day.
Have a good one.
And we are going to continue the conversation about what I'm thankful for, because I'm thankful about a lot of things. So yes, yesterday we had the generational conversation, and the girl that you heard on the clip was from Generation Z. Not a millennial, Generation Z. So actually, Generation Z, the people who were born 2001 and beyond, they're going to be adults next year. So people like, let's give her the name Amanda for this famous Boston song that's playing in the background. People like Amanda talking about you should speak English could be the people who are your legislators, because she's clearly outspoken. So good for her on trying to be a part of the process. What do you think? Because now yesterday we talked about the traditionalists, we talked about the baby boomers, we talked about Generation X, and we talked about millennials, but we didn't get into Generation Z. And not even a day later, this video crossed my path. How about that? So I also want to tell you something else I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for the fact that when people are dying because of opioids, Congress and Senate is more focused on, I bet you'll never guess it, marijuana remaining a Schedule 1 drug.
In case my mom is watching, I want to be really clear. I'm not advocating for the legalization of marijuana. Director Baum? In case my mom is watching, I want to be really clear. I'm not advocating for the legalization of marijuana.
Thanks, Mom.
I will be very, very clear about that. However, I don't understand why it's a Schedule 1. It's certainly not treated as a inherently dangerous substance for which there is no medicinal value. It takes a tractor trailer full of marijuana to even trigger a mandatory minimum under our drug laws. So is there any appetite for researching whether or not it should remain a Schedule 1 drug?
Congressman, the administration doesn't have a position on that, but I'm happy to dialogue with your office. And let me just briefly say that we strongly support research on medical use of marijuana. And if there are obstacles that we see that prevent good research, we want to address those obstacles. Because if there are component elements of marijuana that could be put through the FDA process and turned into medicines that could help people in this country, we want to do that. So we do think there's some potential, and we support research on the subject.
Well, just so everyone's clear, methamphetamine is scheduled what?
I believe it's scheduled
2. Cocaine is scheduled what?
also 2.
Cocaine base is scheduled what? 2. So it is scheduled lower than marijuana. And again, you can schedule something and still not have it scheduled as a 1. And I would encourage the powers that be, whoever you need to consult with in the administration, to at least explore whether or not it's scheduled correctly without being perceived as advocating for legalization.
How about Congressman Trey Gowdy talking about how he thinks that marijuana should not be a Schedule I drug anymore? So while we're talking about people who are dying on the streets because of the opioid epidemic, right? People who are now being treated for death, but they're still overdosing at alarming rates because nobody's really doing anything about it other than just saving lives, but they're not really treating the addiction any way than they did previously. Sure, they're making it less likely where when you go to the doctors, you can't get a 30-day prescription of OxyContin, of Vicodin, of Percocet, but really, it's being treated the same exact way that it's been treated for the past 4 years when you actually get addicted to the substance. So, nothing's happening differently, and Congress and Senate are more worried about marijuana legislation than they are about treating opioids different, figuring out the opioid epidemic. And this is sad, right? Because we're using policy and we're using research that is antiquated and potentially skewed because of presidential bias. And this isn't the current president. I want to be clear about that. The current president, I don't know, other than what Jeff Sessions is doing, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, I don't know that the Trump administration has an opinion on the legalization of marijuana or medicinal use for marijuana. And actually, you heard that gentleman talking about the administration and how they don't have an opinion, but he was speaking for himself, saying he wants to explore whether medicinal purposes, marijuana for medicinal purposes actually works. But I think Trey Gowdy hit the nail on the head. Why is this a Schedule I? So let me tell you what is a Schedule I drug, as well as marijuana. Heroin, LSD, ecstasy, and as Trey Gowdy said, methamphetamine. So, wow. Listen to some of those drugs, and then you loop marijuana. So every single one of these drugs that is a Schedule I can kill you. Not only kill you, it can really, really kill you. Like, instantaneously kill you. Do you know anybody who's died, or have you ever heard of somebody who's died instantaneously from marijuana, other than maybe operating under the influence of marijuana, a motor vehicle or something along those lines, which is illegal for pretty much every drug known to mankind, even the legal ones? So, a Schedule II substance, which he was pointing out, Schedule II substances are Vicodin, cocaine, methadone, OxyContin, fentanyl, Adderall, if I could speak properly, and Ritalin. So, wow. We have all of these drugs that we know people get addicted to, that we know people can die from, and they're Schedule II. And marijuana isn't even in that schedule. They are above. They're more dangerous than Vicodin. Marijuana is more dangerous than cocaine. It's more dangerous than OxyContin, fentanyl, than Ritalin. Marijuana is just as dangerous as heroin, according to your government. Somebody on Facebook Live says, and I quote, "The Nixon campaign in 1968 in the Nixon White House, after that, had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. Former Nixon domestic policy chief John Ehrlichman," there we go, I can figure that out at some point in time, told Harper's writer Dan Bomfer, the April cover of Published Tuesday, story published Tuesday. So you understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then decriminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities, in quotes. So that's what they're saying Erickman said. Finally, we could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about them? Of course we did. So this accusation is saying that they realized that they purposely were saying marijuana was illegal to the end of trying to raid some of the Black Panther stuff that was going on and to kind of stop some of the anti-war protests. Now, really, when it comes down to it, Richard Nixon started the war on drugs, right? So when we look at the Nixon agenda, ask yourself this question. Were they doing it, were they making marijuana illegal in order to help you, or were they making marijuana illegal in order to help them? So that really, really is important, because who benefited from marijuana being illegal? Who benefited from the war on drugs? I think it was government, right? And who else benefited? Drug companies. Drug companies now, instead of being able to use marijuana as pain treatment, they're using OxyContin, Vicodin, Percocet to treat your pain. Meanwhile, a medicine that could really help people with pain, people who have cancer. Meanwhile, people who could use marijuana medicine to cure things or to help out with things like Parkinson's disease, like rashes, like insomnia. They could be using this marijuana in order to help their lives. Instead, we're focused on keeping marijuana a Schedule I drug, and we're giving people painkillers and addictive drugs to treat a lot of these things that aren't helping. It's actually making people sicker. Somebody actually told me a story. I went out to eat at one of our sponsors, and that's Family Ties, and Family Ties restaurant that's in Tiverton, Rhode Island, and the owner said, you know, there is evidence of people who have been able to eat again, and animals that have been able to eat again because of marijuana usage. And whether I agree or disagree with a lot of his opinions, I think he made a fair point. And the question is should we be focusing on people's health first, or should we be focusing on drug companies getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier? Somebody else on Facebook Live, actually it was the same person who made the Nixon comment, said, I haven't heard that song in forever. That was Afro Man, Because I Got High. So, how about that? So yeah, and if you like Afro Man, they have a bunch of other stuff. Make sure you turn on the edit, because it's a parental advisory. Don't let the kids listen to it unless you're a non-FCC household or you're watching on Facebook Live. But yeah, I think that it's important to realize that marijuana is helping people get over some serious illnesses. And the unfortunate part is people don't have access to it with their normal health care. They're paying for it with cash. So marijuana has shown that it can reduce the size of tumors in brains. Marijuana has shown that it can help people who have brain cancer get better. The issue is people are spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on things like hash oil. That's right, hash oil. Because they're trying to get better, and insurance companies aren't covering it, because you have people like General Jeff Sessions, who's saying that he's going to crack down and make sure we're enforcing the marijuana laws. The marijuana laws, which are a Schedule I, which is the same as heroin, the same as LSD, and the same as ecstasy. Because marijuana will kill you according to Schedule I. Marijuana is going to kill you. So please, if you know somebody who died because of a marijuana overdose, and I know you're listening to this show from Idaho to North Dakota to Louisiana to California to Massachusetts, and you know there are some people listening right now in the Azores. So if you're listening to this show right now, and you know somebody who died from a marijuana overdose, not operating under the influence, because you could die from operating under the influence under alcohol, under opioids, but if you know somebody who died from an overdose of marijuana, please call me. 508-673-1480. Please, 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 please prove me wrong. I want to know if this has happened, because if it has happened, if you do have a concrete example, I will believe you. And then I will say marijuana kills people. So somebody else on Facebook said, I was going to try smoking marijuana to see if it helps with my speech impediment, and we're talking about the stuttering comic Anthony Brooks, and if it helps with speech impediment because I stutter, but it turned out that it made my stuttering even longer. It took me a lot longer to say stuff because I was talking really, really slow and stuttering really, really slow. My conversation was 3 times as long. So he's actually hilarious, the stuttering comic. So, yeah, if you know somebody who died of an overdose, other than hearsay, other than maybe something that was purported, please, 508-673-1480. You can comment on Facebook Live from a non-fake profile, and I want to know. I think it's important that we talk about this. And if you're listening to this on a group in some part of the country, you're going to have to go to the Brain Drain page, like the page, and scroll down below in order to join the conversation, because otherwise I can't see it if it's in a different group. But to dive back into it, think about what's happening, right? Think about the family members that you have who could benefit from treating marijuana as a step towards treating pain management, right? If instead of using opioids right off the bat, a doctor says to you, hey, Tylenol isn't working, ibuprofen isn't working, we're going to give you some marijuana without the THC. We'll give you some marijuana so you can hopefully get healthier. And they're using the same stuff with kids. We're going to give you some marijuana so you feel a little bit better, so your migraine subsides, so you can sleep at night. And if that doesn't work, then we'll get you to something that maybe is an opioid. If you use that as a step in the pain management process, I think it would be safe. I think it could potentially help people. So somebody said on Facebook Live that call will never come. There's no recorded overdose deaths from marijuana. And I think she's right. I think she is 100% correct that call will never come. So again, if you know somebody, if you have ever seen somebody overdose from marijuana, and this could be somebody in the EMT field, if this could be somebody who's a paramedic, this could be somebody who's a firefighter, a police officer, this could be somebody who works in the jail system. If you have ever seen somebody overdose from marijuana, call in 508-673-1480. Right. And we're going to continue the conversation about marijuana because it's Thankful Thursday, and we're talking about the things that we're thankful for. One of them we started off the show with was the fact that Generation Z is now getting involved with politics, how they're saying that we should all speak American. Everybody in the world should speak American. Not Canadian, not English. They should speak American. The second thing is we're talking about, instead of talking about opioid reform and how we can start saving lives and reducing addiction with opioids, your government is more concerned about marijuana, whether it should be a Schedule I drug, a Schedule II drug, whether it should be legal, illegal, whether it should be just used for medicine, or whether it should just be used for recreational purposes. They're worried about, instead of saving lives, bickering over something that's common sense. So, before we get back to the lines, and if you're on the line, stay on the line, call in 508-673-1480, I just want to point out one more thing. Think about how many people are serving jail sentences right now in some of these states because of possession of marijuana, because of use of marijuana. And I think that's a huge concern. People are really worried about what happens when all these people get out of jail, get out of prison, and hit the streets. Because there are still some states that have mandatory minimum sentences for Schedule I drugs. And marijuana is one of those, along with heroin, LSD, and ecstasy. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. What say you?
Great show, great show.
Thank you so much.
I've smoked weed since I was 17. I'm 68 years old. I'm a recovering alcoholic. It took me off the booze. I have nothing but great stuff to say about medical marijuana. Like I said, I used to get six Vicodins, 60 Vicodins a month, right? I don't take any of them now.
60 Vicodin a month.
I just use the weed now.
Wow. And you're using that for pain management, it sounds like.
Yes, it is.
So it's funny because you went from 60 Vicodin a month, which was making you sleepy, and you were
making me dopey.
Right. And you went from that, which could have potentially killed you because you could have became dependent on it, and you could have had to increase your dosage over and over and over again. And instead of that, you're now using marijuana. Now the question is
and my doctor has no problem with it.
How are you paying for it?
For the weed?
Yeah.
Out of my own pocket. I mean, I have Social Security check, and I have a union pension.
So that's the interesting part.
I can afford it.
So that's the interesting part about it right there. You're using your Social Security, you're using your pension, your fixed income to pay for marijuana. You're using it for pain management. When any other drug out there in the world, if you're using it for pain management, your insurance company is going to pick it up, right? So you wouldn't have to pay out of your pocket for that.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Well, if it's Vicodin...
All I know is I used to get 60 of them, and then I told my doctor, look, I'm just going to smoke weed. I'm a medical marijuana patient anyway, and right now, I said, as long as I'm 21, it's legal.
Well, here's a question
for you. And it's done fine for me. You know, I've never been arrested for a marijuana charge in my life.
Well, here's a question for you, and I think this is an important question. When you were filling your prescription for Vicodin,
yep.
Where did you go, and what did you use to pay for it?
Well, like I said, I have two pensions.
All right, so when you were getting your Vicodin, you didn't go to the pharmaceutical company or pharmacy?
No, I just go to the drugstore. They'd have the script ready for me.
All right, so you went to the drugstore, they had the script ready, and you'd give them your insurance card, right? And then you had to...
I'm not sure if there was an insurance card involved. I don't know.
So usually...
I really can't remember.
All right,
That's the only bad thing about weed.
All right, so and that could be the strain that you're using. Now, that being said, usually what happens when people pick up a prescription is they give the drug company, they give the drugstore, they give the pharmacy they give them their insurance, their primary insurance or their drug card, and they go in and they pick it up and they have to pay a copay.
Oh.
And what's happening right now with marijuana is people have to pay 100% of that cost with the cash. And things like hash oil, which is helping people with brain cancer,
I'm sure.
Hash oil is very, very, very expensive.
I believe there's a lady on the council, her granddaughter, she has to make it all up for her granddaughter and all that.
All right, so let me clarify that statement.
I think it's the LeBeau girl.
Yep, so it's Pamela Liberty LeBeau, who is a former Massachusetts city councilor. She has a daughter. You're aging her by saying her granddaughter.
On TV.
Yeah, you're aging her. She has a daughter.
Yeah.
And her daughter is being treated with medicinal marijuana, and it is helping.
Yeah, I mean, you got these old timers that like, first of all, marijuana should not be classified with heroin. That is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard of.
Well, here's the funnier thing about that. Cocaine is considered safer than marijuana according to the schedules.
I find that hard to believe.
I'm telling you, that's the case.
Yeah,
cocaine.
I think you'd have more heart attacks snorting cocaine than smoking weed.
Well, here's some other Schedule II drugs. Tell me what you think. So Vicodin is safer than marijuana. Methadone is safer than marijuana. OxyContin is safer than marijuana. Fentanyl is safer than marijuana. Adderall and Ritalin are safer than marijuana, according to your government.
Well, they're nuts. They need to get some people that have done this. Like I've said, I've done this since I was 17 years old.
Well, they would
I'm
argue
67 now.
They would argue that because you've done this, you would have a bias. But I think you're right. I think they have to start looking at this in an unbiased manner.
There's no rhyme or reason why weed should be in the same classification as heroin.
Well, I'll make this general statement.
That is the most whacked out thing talk about whacked out sports.
If you know anybody who's ever died of a marijuana overdose, I'm making this general statement right now. If you don't even have to call in on this show. Call me on my phone.
I don't know nobody that's ever died.
Text me.
All that ever happened, I got hungry and I ate a lot and I slept good.
Well, did you hear about the girl who set up outside of a marijuana distribution center in California selling Girl Scout cookies?
You gotta love it, huh?
She made bank. She was set up outside of a marijuana distribution facility in California, and she was selling Girl Scout cookies, and she tore it up. She made bank. And you know what the Girl Scouts of America said about it? We promote people being entrepreneurs, and it sounds like as long as she wasn't on public property and the private facility allowed her to stay there, then she abided by our rules.
Well, some people with reason.
How about that?
It's hard to find nowadays.
So what do you think we have to do to start making our Congress, our Senate, more aware of the effects of marijuana?
I don't know, because I think it's an age gap. You know, the older people, like I said, they still think it's like heroin, and it's not.
Well, and also, you know, I a lot of times when people feel that I'm leaning a certain way, they'll call in to agree with me. But if you disagree with me,
I don't care if anybody agrees with me.
Right.
I'm at the, like I said, I'm 67. I've been smoking it since I'm 17. I never had a drug charge, a marijuana charge, or nothing like that. Now, alcohol is a different thing with me. I'm a recovering alcoholic, but weed has kept me sober.
Well, and I just want to be clear. When I'm saying that, I'm talking to everybody who's listening right now. A lot of times people are afraid to call in if they disagree with me. I want you to call in and disagree with me because opinions are like brains. Everybody's got one.
Yeah, but
I've got one. You've got one.
Fortunately, I don't disagree with you. I just think it's helped me immensely. Like I said, it's kept me sober for over 50 years.
Thank you so much for your call. Have a great day.
You too.
So yes, again, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, call in. Because you know what? I may be off base on some parts. Call in. Let me know what you think. We're going to go back to the lines. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning. How you doing? Hello?
Yeah, I think you're wrong.
All right, tell me why.
Tell you why? Because you people ODing on heroin, cocaine, and all that. You don't see nobody ODing on marijuana. Marijuana is good not once in history. That gives to cancer patients, AIDS patients, and everything. So how can you say those other drugs, especially methadone, when people on methadone, they can't even kick it. They run methadone for so many years, man. You smoke a bomb, it's okay. You want to quit, you can quit. So how could you say that's better than marijuana? I think you should be doing marijuana. Maybe your brain might be better on other stuff.
Now, it's funny because if you listen to what I said, I'm talking about what the government is saying. I agree with you that marijuana doesn't kill people. And
you don't see people trying to, if you want to quit marijuana, it's easy to quit. How can you quit methadone when you can't? People are hooked on methadone. You can't get off that stuff.
So I appreciate that you're telling me that I'm wrong, but I'm actually agreeing with exactly what you're saying.
People are saying, you know, weed, everybody's making this thing about weed, man. Give it a break, man. It's curing people. Little kids with liquid, the marijuana is helping people with seizures and everything. So they should allow anybody to smoke with it and let everything be legal. You want to get rid of all that junky shit and cocaine and all that, man. Get that out of the city.
So I want to caution you that I agree with you again, but I want to caution you that you can't swear on the air because we're monitored by FCC.
I'm saying you got these other people that are trying to kick nothing when you're making it better for those people when you want to wean them off of them.
You know, and I think it's important that we continue to have the conversation about what the positive effects of marijuana are. But again, if you disagree and you think that marijuana is bad for you, I want people to call in. You and I agree, caller.
Now, marijuana is very happy for people.
But
other stuff is very sad.
So here's the interesting part, and I want to see your take on this, and we have 30 seconds left, so I'm going to go quick. Right now, in the federal government, marijuana is considered a Schedule I drug, along with heroin, LSD, and ecstasy. Do you think that should be the case?
No.
All right. Thank you so much for your call. Have a great day. Talking about marijuana. Why is it a Schedule I drug? Why is it that marijuana is not being looked at as a medicine? And as opposed to trying to figure out how to stop overdoses, government is focusing more so on making sure that you don't have access to the marijuana that is potentially helping you. So if you agree, if you disagree, call in 508-673-1480. Join the conversation. Continue commenting on Facebook Live, on the J&J Jewelers Facebook Live cam. And if you're watching me from some group and you want to join the conversation, you have to go to the Brain Drain page. So click the video. You'll be on the Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres page, and you can join the conversation that way. We're going to go right back to the lines. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Morning.
How you doing today?
You know, I used to drive these, do medical runs and drive people at doctor's appointments, and the early part of the day was taking these people to methadone.
Okay.
And I was talking to this kid, he's early 20s, and I said to him, he says, I wish I could get off this stuff. He says, but I said, well, how long are you going to be on it? He says, hey, be on it for the rest of your life. He says, it depends how they want to cut you back. I says to him, he said, but you got to have it or you go into withdrawals. So I said, well, is there anything else that would do it? Keep you from going to withdrawals other than this stuff? He says, yeah. He says, he said, marijuana will do it. He says, you can start out on methadone, wean yourself off with marijuana, and you don't get any withdrawals with the marijuana.
Wow.
So I said, so why don't you do it? He said, because it's too expensive.
And that's exactly it right there.
And he says, nobody can afford it. Or he says, very few people can afford it.
Insurance?
So marijuana would do that? He says, yeah. He says, I got a friend. He's got plenty of money. He says, he doesn't take methadone at all. He just smokes his weed when he feels like he's going into withdrawal, and it mellows him right out.
And the sad part is you pay for health insurance, and health insurance will not pay for a drug that is helping you get better, helping you get unaddicted, but it will pay for a drug that will get you addicted. How does that make sense?
I'm telling you what he told me, and I said, well, they say that marijuana is a gateway drug. He says, marijuana, he says, people smoke marijuana when they want to. He says, people do heroin and opioids when they have to.
Well, that's a good point. And, if anybody thinks that marijuana is a gateway drug, please call in, 508-673-1480. Please comment on the Facebook Live feed. Tell me why marijuana is a gateway drug. Because if marijuana is a gateway drug, then tobacco is a gateway drug, then alcohol is a gateway drug, then sugar is a gateway drug.
Well, it's funny because I said to him, well, there's people who smoke pot every single day. He goes, yeah, when they want to. He says, not when they have to. He says, when they're working, they're working. He says, when they get out of work and they want to do it, they do it. He says, you're working, and he says, you go through withdrawals. He says, you got to do it.
Yeah,
that was his story.
I think it's an important point that we realize that, unfortunately, as part of treatment for any type of illness, one of the first things that you're going to do, especially when it relates to pain, is give people an opioid. Why don't we use marijuana as a step towards making opioids?
You know what got marijuana classified the way it did? It was all politics. It was the liquor lobby.
We talked about
up until the I think it was 1936 or 37, there was no laws against marijuana. People smoked it during Prohibition, and it got popular. And then when Prohibition was repealed, people said, oh, the hell with the booze. I like this stuff better. And the liquor people said, oh, what do we got here? So they had a very strong lobby, and they got Congress to enact laws.
And if you go to the Facebook Live feed, and actually I talked about exactly what you said earlier today, somebody commented on exactly that. But I want to thank you for your call, thank you for your points, and thank you for your experience. Have a great day. You're live in the legendary 1480 WSAR. This is Brain Drain. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
All right, two things. Marijuana isn't legal because politicians are getting greased by the pharmaceutical companies and all kinds of medical companies and stuff to keep it illegal.
I think that's fair.
There's too many benefits to it, and too low a cost. They can't make the money that they would be making that they are now on methadone. The doctors won't be getting paid treating people with opioid addiction with methadone, Suboxone, and all that baloney. That's number one.
Well, I disagree because right now people are paying more money out of pocket for marijuana than they would pay for, say, Percocet if it were readily available and they could pay for it for cash. Right now, marijuana is an expensive drug because it's high in demand.
it's an expensive drug. If you're growing it, it's not that expensive, and it's more readily available than pretty much any other drug. I mean, I smell it everywhere I go.
It's not factory produced. I think that's the key.
It's easy to, anybody can grow it. You could grow it. I could grow it. A matter of fact, I think in Massachusetts now it is legal to have so many. You can have a certain quantity that you grow yourself.
There's a
Some
lot of
people
states.
are experts at it. I know kids that don't even smoke it. They extract, I don't know, some kind of oil from it or whatever, and they just use the oils.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because in Washington, D.C., where obviously Capitol Hill is, Washington, D.C., they have legalized marijuana where you can have plants inside of your house and you can grow inside your house.
I think it's the same thing in Massachusetts. You can have a certain amount of plants and you can have a certain amount of product, but it's got to be on the property.
And there's a lot of states that have the same rules.
Yeah, and the other thing was, like your last caller just touched on. I think I know that guy. I actually enjoy talking to him. If it's who I think it is, we've had some good conversations face to face. Anyway, what he touched on is the fact that I actually went into an establishment the other day on business that distributes alcohol, and I said, how's business been? And the guy said, we're just having a conversation. He says, well, it's actually slowed down a little bit. I said, really? I says, is that like a normal yearly thing? He says, no, it's because of the decriminalization of marijuana. He says, at first we thought it might be that, so we started doing research around other states that have decriminalized it, and the same thing happened everywhere that it was decriminalized. Alcohol use went down as marijuana became more, more accepted.
And I'm going to hold you there because the lines are hot, and I want to give everybody else the opportunity. Thank you for a point.
Have a good day.
But you actually brought up a good point. The alcohol lobby is spending tons and tons of money at the Capitol Hill and at state houses to make sure that marijuana isn't as legal as it potentially could be, because people who have liquor stores are losing profits. Bars are losing profits. So the alcohol lobby is spending tons and tons of money. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing today?
Good. Yourself?
I'm doing great.
First I'd like to say that marijuana / hemp is not a drug. It's a herb. It was put here by God for our nourishment, like it says in the Bible. And the Navy used the hemp products up until the mid-40s, 1940s. The Rockefeller Foundation knew that marijuana, hemp, was in competition with their pharmaceutical drugs. So that's one of the main reasons why it's off the market and considered a drug, because that plant will grow just about anywhere. It replenishes the soil. You can make fuel with it. You can make clothes with it, paper with it, rope with it. You can make basically anything. You can make composites. Henry Ford made a composite hemp car back in the early 1900s. You can make wood products with it. So this plant is universal, and it can do many things. So if it's in competition with the major corporations, they eliminate it, and they make it scarce and hard to get, and they make the price outrageous, so we can't afford it.
I think that's part of it, is when you need this actual medicine, you aren't able to get it any other way than using your cash. You pay for health insurance. This medicine is helping you treat an illness, but you can't use your insurance to pay for it. You have to pay 100% in cash, and it's causing people to go broke.
Yeah, and who runs all the insurance companies, all the major corporations? They're all in bed together. And, there's a good magazine out there that details a lot of what I'm saying. It's called 1000wattsmagazine.com. I would actually believe that's a local magazine, too. And they talk about how the government suppresses the use of marijuana, and they talk a lot about the history of marijuana and hemp. And there's another a good documentary on YouTube. It's called Hemp Revolution, and it basically just describes everything I just told you. People should actually watch that and be more informed about this universal plant.
Well, thank you so much for your call. I hope you have a very, very great day.
You too. Thanks.
Now, there's a couple of things that I think people have to be careful with when they're doing research, and one of them is documentaries, because usually somebody will not make a documentary unless they have an agenda, either for or against, and they'll kind of tailor things to prove their point. It's really just confirmation bias. So my opinion is before you actually go and watch a documentary or watch a video, go and do some unbiased research. Find both arguments and see what actually works and what facts they're using that are actually true, and what facts that they're using that are, or what opinions they're using to justify their argument. Only then are you going to find what really is making a difference. Now, I want to add one more piece to this long and drawn-out conversation that's happened for the past 60 years about marijuana. Right now, in some states, marijuana is legal for recreational and medicinal use. Now, if you have, at least in Massachusetts, a medical marijuana card, and you also have a license to carry and conceal a firearm, when you try to renew that license to carry and conceal and you tell them that you have a medical marijuana card, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get the big denial stamp. You are not going to be able to carry a gun, which is your Second Amendment right, any longer if you're using medicinal marijuana in the state of Massachusetts. So why is that? And I know there's a lot of states who have legalized marijuana, but then they aren't very fond of guns. So those states are making it harder and harder and harder for you to exercise your Second Amendment right, which is bear arms. So really, if you need marijuana for the purpose of treating pain, and you also are a gun carrier, you're going to have to choose one way or the other which you want. Do you want to treat your pain? Do you want to go to sleep easier every single night because you're using it because you can't sleep because you might have post-traumatic stress disorder? Are you using it because of some type of cancer? Or do you want your marijuana to help with those things? Or do you want to exercise your right to carry a gun? Because you're going to have to make that very difficult choice in some states, including Massachusetts. You're live at the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I just, your last caller was informed, somewhat misinformed on some facts, but that's okay.
Okay.
I only wanted to say one thing, and that's just bring up some other conversation.
Sure.
Marijuana is not a gateway drug.
Okay.
Pharmaceutical companies are the gateway to drugs.
So it's funny that you say that, because the gateway drug argument kind of spurs from what happens when you're a kid, when you start experimenting, and the government kind of posed this big argument that marijuana is the gateway drug. But I'm making the argument that usually when people start experimenting with things, it's usually cigarettes. Right? When I went to school, when majority of people went to school, the first thing that the kids who were the cool kids wanted to experiment with was cigarettes.
And GIQs.
And then it went to alcohol, and then it might have progressed to marijuana, and then it might have progressed even further than that. The difference between cigarettes and alcohol and marijuana is cigarettes and alcohol are legal for consumption if you're a certain age. Marijuana is not.
Correct.
That's the problem.
And if you legalize it, you will take it, for the most part, it'll take years, but for the most part, it will get it off the streets for the young ones that can buy it on a corner.
Yeah. I think that is a fair point. If we can make marijuana readily available enough, it will cut the black market completely out.
Oh, yes, it will. And the black market is afraid of that. Look what's happening in California.
Yeah.
They're going to be devastated out there. So it's been around. It's still legal. And in the United States of America, since the 20s, there's been a stamp out, like an alcohol stamp and a tobacco stamp.
Mm-hmm.
The stamp is out there for marijuana, but it's only been given out once since the 30s.
Wow.
All they have to do is allow the registration and sale of that stamp.
It's crazy because...
And I ask you to look into that. You'll see.
And one of the funny things about this is people make the argument that government can't figure out how to make money off of it, and companies can't figure out how to make money off of it, and that's why it's not. That's not true at all. So ultimately, companies are going to they've figured out a way to manipulate crops with GMOs and stuff like that. So that way they won't reproduce, and you have to go to Monsanto consistently. If Monsanto was able to figure out a way to make sure that crops don't reproduce, then there's going to be a way for people to figure out how to make sure they can make a profit off of marijuana. Thank you so much for your call. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You're live in the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty darn good, man. Better than I deserve, as G. Gordon Liddy would tell us, right?
Well, you know, it's a thankful Thursday, and I'm glad that you're feeling very darn good.
Amen, brother. That's the way I would say it. I have a couple of comments. I am a proud, registered, liberal, progressive Democrat, and I'll die one. I promise you, there ain't gonna be a Republican in my lifetime to ever impress me. I never did vote for Charlie Baker. I helped campaign for Martha Coakley, so I want to just let you know. I didn't just support and approve of any one Democrat, because not all Democrats are as good as I feel Martha Coakley was as my Attorney General. She would have been a terrific governor. Unfortunately, Charlie Baker had about $35 million, and he's our Republican governor currently. For all you registered voters out there, Republican and Democrats and independents alike, I just want you to hear something. Right now, here today, Charlie Baker is for Donald Trump. He will not vote as a Republican governor of this country to impeach Donald J. Trump, which you can pick and choose any subject, any topic, from sexual predator, which is what he is, to mobster, to whatever you want to say good about him. You'd be lying, because I've tried. There's nothing good about Donald J. Trump. Nothing.
All right,
Charlie Baker is for Mr. Trump. He will not impeach him. Why would he expect me as a voter in Massachusetts to vote for him? I'm just wondering. I'm going to call another station soon.
Wait.
He's on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But before you continue, and it seems like you're on a station crusade right now to talk about this, so I'm going to be honest with you. I'm an unenrolled voter. I voted for Charlie Baker as a Massachusetts resident. And you know who else I voted for? I voted for John Kasich, and I picked my primary vote in the presidential election was a Republican ballot and voted for John Kasich. I am a fan of people who sit in the middle and are willing to work across the aisle. And in my opinion, Charlie Baker is one of the best people for that. What say you?
Yeah. Well. I mean, if you can tell me why he would not want to vote to impeach. Now, as a governor, he has that vote. As a governor, they all have the vote. Come impeachment time. Hopefully, we get to vote on that, and or as far as the governors and whoever the elected officials are get to vote for impeachment or not. If he decides to not vote to impeach the worst president in the world ever. I mean, I can't imagine. I didn't think the Bushes, anybody would be worse than the Bushes. But oh my gosh, Donald J. Trump is beyond. And it's not just him. In my opinion, it's the Republican Party. I don't blame Donald Trump for half of what he's into right now. I blame Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can vote Republican all you want, sir, with all due respect. I like you, but I do not have any reason in my lifetime, being a poor and innocent man, you can look up what that means, poor and innocent, to be so poor and innocent in this world. And I'm a veteran too, brother.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm
thank you for your service.
Veteran, so you can't go there with me.
No, well, thank you for your service.
I know you won't, because I like you. I think you're a fair and balanced guy.
I try.
Unlike Fox News, okay?
Thank you.
But this is the facts.
All right.
Republicans are finished. They're finished.
All right.
They are.
Thank you so much for your call.
Thank you, sir. You have a good day.
You too. Thank you. And thank you for your service. Thank you for your opinions. Whether we agree or disagree, it's important to make sure that everybody exercises their right to speak freely and the right to exercise their freedom, because you know what? Brains are like opinions. Or opinions are like brains. Everybody's got one, right? And I want to thank you for exercising yours. There's one thing that I want to point out. One example of where Charlie Baker was able to reach across the aisle, and it's his disagreement with what the Attorney General is doing with his attack on marijuana. We're going to go to a commercial break. If you're on the line, stay on the line, 508-673-1480. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. What say you?
Hi, good morning, Richard.
Good morning.
Richard, I'd like to comment on marijuana not being a gateway drug.
Sure.
Okay, I just so you know, I had a front row seat for 20 years watching a neighborhood kid destroy his life.
Okay.
He started smoking marijuana as a young teenager. He hung out with and attracted low-life friends to the neighborhood. They partied on the front lawn, smoked marijuana, mixed in some alcohol. So needless to say, their behavior disrupted the whole neighborhood. Okay, at some point, marijuana did not satisfy him. So what does he do? Or he and his friends, they go on to other drugs, opiates, heroin. I don't know, but anyway, it resulted in his death at 23 years old.
Wow.
So again, I know a lot of people say that it's not a gateway drug, but from what I've seen, and nothing's going to change my mind, Richard, in some cases, it is a gateway drug, no matter how you want to look at it.
You know, and I think you're bringing up a fair example. Now, my question to you, and I know this is a sensitive issue because you know this person directly, but my question to you is, did he start with marijuana, or did he start with tobacco? Did he start with alcohol? Do you know offhand?
I know that he started with marijuana, and I'm going to tell you, both his parents, Richard, died of overdoses.
Wow.
Not necessarily marijuana, but opiates. And again, you know, he ended up living with his grandparents, and unfortunately, they were not able to lead him in a good direction. And he ended up exactly like both of his parents, dead, and he was 23 years old.
Well,
you know, again, you know, too, a lot of people say drinking alcohol. You know, they try to compare the two products. Well, drinking alcohol in moderation is not harmful. And I'm sure that where you've read where drinking a glass of wine occasionally is beneficial to our health. You know, it's when alcohol is abused and when is when it becomes harmful.
And actually, people who are talking about new marijuana research are saying even marijuana in moderation is helpful to your health. Well,
that may be, though, Richard, but quite honestly, the people that I know that have smoked marijuana, they did it, and they did it during, like, their regular working hours. They would go out on lunch break, and then they would come back, you know, like Cheech and Chong type. And you know what, Richard, quite honestly, they were the less productive people. It was in a factory. They were the less productive people there, and they were the first people to get laid off when things got slow. Again, when people, again, I don't want to paint this with a wide brush, but people smoke marijuana to get high. People drink in moderation to be social in some cases, maybe a little relaxed. But again, people that I know that did it, they did it to get high. And again, the story that I mentioned about this young fella at 23, it wasn't only him. It was, like I say, the friends that he attracted, many of them lowlifes, and all they wanted to do was to party. None of them had jobs, you know, but yet they smoked cigarettes and smoked pot, and among other things. So,
thank you so much for your points. Thank you for your personal experience. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. What say you?
I'm on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I agree with the last caller.
Okay.
My son was 13, started smoking marijuana. I was divorced from my wife at the time. I didn't know about it.
Okay.
And, yeah, he went on to other things. From marijuana, he went on to cocaine. From cocaine, he decided he had to get off of those drugs, so he became an alcoholic. Eventually died as alcoholic, but at the age of 49.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. And another thing is the guy that called before the last one was saying he wouldn't vote for Charlie Baker because Charlie Baker wouldn't impeach the President of the United States. He needs to open his Constitution up.
You're right, because a governor can't impeach.
President.
Right.
Federal government does that.
That's right. A governor can't impeach a president. You're right.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't straighten him out right off the bat because he kept going on that theme.
You know, it's funny that you say that, but what I try to do is I try to allow everybody the opportunity to get their points out, and then I kind of talk about the way that I feel afterwards. And you're on point. I started talking about the one thing that he crossed the aisle with, but you're on point. A governor can't impeach a president.
Yeah, one other point I'd like to make.
Actually, before you do, I have one question for you, and I asked this to the previous caller, and I know this is a sensitive topic, and it's okay if you don't want to answer it. Did your son use tobacco or alcohol before using marijuana?
No, he didn't.
All right, thank you so much.
Started off with marijuana, yeah.
All right,
yeah.
So what was your point that you wanted to make, sir?
Yeah, well, marijuana also, I know 3 girls. I coached them in their basketball team. One of them is my granddaughter all through the middle years. They were best of friends from grade school on, all straight A students, all exceptional athletes. Mm-hmm. 2 of them started smoking marijuana as seniors after they had legalized it here in the state. They now are at the best C students. My granddaughter's still an A-plus student. But the other two girls who started smoking marijuana are now C students at best. They dropped out of high school athletics. So that's another point you have to make about marijuana.
Okay.
It's a depressive. It's also classed as a hallucinogen drug. So you was talking about people with firearms in this state. You don't want people walking around with firearms that are under using a hallucinogen drug.
Well, I think your personal experience on this, a lot of people can relate to it. But, I'm going to pose the question because the lines are hot right now. I'm going to pose it to the next caller. Thank you so much for giving me your personal story. Have a great day.
Right.
And what say you? The previous callers talked about how marijuana was a gateway drug. What do you think? You're live in the legendary 1480 WSAR. Yes, that's you who I'm talking to right now. Hello. Hello. All right. You're live at legendary 1480 WSAR. What say you about what the previous callers said?
About it being a gateway drug?
Yes.
Fully. Simple as that. I have a son at the age of 17 and a half. He tried pot with the friends, but in those days the pot was a little expensive, so they went to heroin, and my son OD'd at 17 and a half. So I can't say that marijuana was his gateway drug.
Okay. Here's something.
Matter of fact, when he started getting involved with it, and after a couple of rehabs, I actually said to him, "Man, why don't you smoke pot?"
So
it's probably a crazy thing to say at the time, but I was desperate.
And it makes sense. And somebody actually called previously and said, that people were easier able to get off things like methadone, which was getting them down off of opioid with marijuana.
Well, bottom line
off
is,
of opioids with marijuana.
That night, 11 kids OD'd.
Okay.
9 survived. A kid from Tiverton didn't make it, and my son from Fall River didn't make it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I wished my son really could afford marijuana at the time,
Right.
But that's my story, and it's not a phony story.
And I appreciate you sharing your story because I think it's important. And now, I want to ask you this question. I've asked it to everybody else who thinks that.
One more thing.
Yep.
If Diamond at the time, he was a junior at Diamond.
Yep.
If Diamond would have had a football team,
yep,
I don't believe he would have gone into drugs.
Wow. I think that's a bold statement, and I actually went to Diamond when they didn't have a football team. And Diamond is the paragon of vocational education in this country. Yeah. But, unfortunately, just like every other school, there are some people who end up going down a path that ultimately leads to their demise.
Yeah. But, like I say...
Before you go, sir, and I know this is a sensitive topic, and
I'm so used to it now. It's been 40-some years now.
Did your son start with marijuana, or did he start with tobacco or alcohol first?
I believe he started with alcohol.
All right.
And probably cigarettes.
Thank you so much for your candor.
Marijuana wasn't a big... it was expensive for the kids.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. When it comes to expense,
I hope somebody can get something out of it. But trust me, marijuana is not a gateway drug. I don't care what they say.
All right, thank you so much.
Yep.
Have a great day. So there we go. We have people who are saying it's not a gateway drug. We have people who are saying it is a gateway drug. What do you think marijuana is? Do you think it's saving lives? Do you think it's killing people? Do you think it's a gateway drug? Do you think it's not a gateway drug? We're going into our last segment. We're talking about the chronic. Whatever you want to call it, you have the opportunity. Is it a gateway drug? Is it not a gateway drug? Should it be a Schedule 1? Classified Schedule 1 along with heroin, LSD, ecstasy, which is more dangerous than Vicodin, cocaine, fentanyl, Adderall, Ritalin. Do you think marijuana is more dangerous than those Schedule 2 drugs that I just listed? You're live in the legendary 1480 WSAR. What say you?
What's wrong with Ritalin?
Ritalin is something that has been seen as being addictive.
Oh, yeah. It's a control.
Yeah.
So if I walk into Nick's Hot Dogs tomorrow and yell marijuana...
If you actually, you know what? If you walk in and yell marijuana, I not only will I stand up and applaud you, but you'll get your first hot dog for absolutely free.
I might get weed too.
Wait, actually, you know what? I just broke my own rule and said the word of the day twice. Thank you for that.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But the first substance I ever inhaled was tobacco.
Okay.
Second one was that was at the age around 12 or 13. I actually used to hide them in the hallway until my mother caught them and beat the heck out of me. But she smoked cigarettes. My dad smoked cigarettes. They're two straight shooters, believe me. My parents were completely straight as an arrow. I mean, hated weed, alcohol, hated alcohol. My father thought every bar in Fall River should burn down. Okay. At the age of probably 14, I actually went to a package store and bought two 16-ounce cans of malt ale.
It was the package store that everybody knew that you could buy underage, right? Everybody knows that package store.
I mean, you walked in and, you know, maybe I had a few hairs on my face at that age.
And if you don't know what a package store is because you're from a different part of the country, a package store is a liquor store. A package store is a place where you can buy beer or any type of alcohol. I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, not too many scratch tickets back then. But anyway, I sucked down two 16-ounce cans and totally got sick and went home, and my mother thought I was on drugs and sent me to a mental clinic, and I had to explain everything that I did.
Well, that explains it, right? That explains...
Oh, yeah, I went out downhill after that because, you know, the eyes were right on me. You know, everything I did... And, you know, life was pretty tough, boy. Let me tell you, I left home at 16 years old. Okay?
You know, and I've lived on my own since 17.
I've been gone.
So, yeah, I lived on my own at 17, I get it.
I actually took my mom in when, you know, when she got elderly. But anyway, life's your life. You know, depends what you want to do with your life, you know?
Well...
And I smoked weed, and I quit on my own.
And that's the thing.
On my own.
And
you know, when I had children, I said, hey, that's it.
And
I'm done.
And I'm going to hold you there.
I'll tell you what, I would never treat my kids the way my parents treated me.
You know, and I think you learned a lot of valuable lessons as a kid. I think you learned a lot of valuable lessons as a kid. But
I was embarrassed half the time. My parents' neighbor smoked weed. My dad come across the street and disowned his neighbor because he was smoking weed.
So...
with his son.
We are getting close to the end of the show, and I do want to provide an opportunity for everybody else. So thank you so much. And I'm going to hold you there. Have a great day.
My parents, man, because I love them.
Have a great day.
All right.
So on Facebook Live, somebody commented, and I'm going to try this on my best, Robin. Wow, I can't even remember his name right now. I'm just going to say it. Good morning, Vietnam! Who's that? That's if you know that name, I'm sorry. Comment. I'm drawing a blank right now. And Robin Williams. There we go. So that being said, let me tell you about my perspective about marijuana. So I have done some things that have been illegal at the time. And you know what some of those things were? Trying tobacco underage. Alcohol underage. And one of those things was smoking marijuana, right? I have smoked marijuana, believe it or not. I know you can write that down. You can record that. I have. And the one thing that I can tell you is I stopped smoking marijuana. So all I can do is speak to my own personal experiences and the research that I'm finding. And the research shows that it's not necessarily a gateway drug. It's more so about personality traits and about genetic makeup when it comes to addiction. So if somebody tries tobacco and they like it, and then they switch to alcohol and they like it, and they switch to marijuana and they like it, and then they switch to harder drugs and they continue to like it, it could be because of one or two things. One, they're really, really, really trying to fit in with the people that they're around. Or two, they have an addictive personality genetically. So those two things we have to really account for. Because there are plenty of people who are functioning today in society who I know personally, speaking on a personal basis, who are executives in companies, who are managing hundreds of people, who are attorneys, who are doctors, who are using marijuana, and it's not killing them, and they're advocating for it behind the scenes, but they can't come out and publicly talk about it. Why? Because they are so concerned that they could lose everything that they've ever worked for. And really, the question becomes, when are we going to really start doing the research to show whether this is a gateway drug or whether this is something that really is helping people? Because we have documented cases of people with brain tumors, of people with Parkinson's, of people with skin ailments, of people with PTSD and sleeping disorders who are living with the use of marijuana and getting better. Their appetite increases and they're able to get healthier because they're putting food and nutrients into their body. They're getting better. So why is it that pharmaceutical companies, why is it that insurance companies are fighting against this? Why is it that you can't pay for prescription marijuana without you can't pay for prescription marijuana with health insurance? The answer is simple. Your government. Your government at the federal level cannot get it out of their heads that marijuana should not be classified the same as heroin, as LSD, as ecstasy. And I don't care if you think it's if it's a gateway drug or not a gateway drug. Marijuana and heroin are vastly different. Marijuana and ecstasy are vastly different. Schedule 2 drug, fentanyl. Marijuana and fentanyl are vastly different. There's no justification, whether you think it's a gateway drug or not, that marijuana is just as dangerous as fentanyl. So, with that, I'm going to leave you with this for the weekend. Go outside of your comfort zone. If you're a pro-marijuana person, look at some of the anti-marijuana stuff. And if you're an anti-marijuana person, look at some of the pro-marijuana stuff. See what is being said. See some of the research. See some of the fact-based arguments. And you know, maybe we can come together and understand what each other are saying and understand where each other are coming from a little bit more so.